All right, so this is, I guess, episode three of Trevor's Quest. Trev's Quest. Trev does his masters, and just some very brief thoughts. So I just completed my first week of doing my online masters at UWA, and so just some reflections. It's a lot of work, a lot of reading. It seemed like just it keeps going as you go through all the things that you have to do. But I can say that it was very fascinating, and I really did enjoy it. So I would say if you're going to do your masters, choose something that's interesting to you because it is a lot of work. And I've done things, studied with things that I would consider to be um, a lot of work before. Um, but I wasn't quite as intrinsically driven in terms of being interested in that stuff as I am in this, and I can just say it makes a huge difference. Um, I think the first maybe 2 or 3 days, I did procrastinate a little bit. Of course, I was trying to get my room organized and get my space sort of all set up so as I move along, it would be conducive to doing the work. So I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing, um, but I think it was maybe like a few days in before I really you know um, spent a lot of time really digging into the books and really digging into the assignments. But once I did start, like I said, I was really enjoying it, and I was, pretty much spending lots of time every day here in my office studying it. And in the past, when I've studied things that were quite involved, um, I could do one of those, marathon sessions, but I would be so exhausted about that stuff that the next day I couldn't dream of really wanting to do marathon sessions like days and days in a row. Whereas this time, uh, even when I've sort of been tired, I've still wanted to come back to it, and I think that's a huge thing, and I hope I hope that stays throughout this journey. I don't know, if it will. Maybe at some point, if I don't find, balance, even though I'm interested in it, maybe I'll get very burnt out. There were a few moments, that didn't last too long, but what I can say is if you are doing it, my takeaway is, and you always hear this, don't live to the last minute. Like start start early so you can gauge you know just how much there really is and how much time it's going to take. So starting of this week, my goal is to basically do what I did for like the last half of the week and the weekend, starting at the beginning, because there was some things that I got in, even though I was working all the time and not being lazy, that I still got done like under the wire, last minute, in terms of it has to be posted, and completed these assignments by, for me it's 1:59 a.m. because I'm 2 hours difference from Alabama, and for anybody living in Alabama it would be 11:59 p.m. So basically before midnight Sunday night. Um, there was some things that I wasn't sure if I was doing the right assignment. Like there was, I think, an assignment where I had to watch two videos, and there was a lot of videos on that website, and I wasn't sure if I was watching the right ones. But it was, by that time it was already Sunday, and the professor, generally rightly so, keeps his nose out of this stuff during the weekend so that he can have some balance. Um, uh, Now, the good thing is that what I did learn about that was is that it's good to have other people that are doing the same thing as you. So through the discussion boards, there were me and some other students that were kind of trying to figure out what these videos were, and that was useful. I think it was a useful, learning experience. And I think that, this next week, um, I think I will feel like I kind of have a little bit of idea, how to navigate the site a bit more than I did in the first week. But I want to. My goal is to, rather than be finishing things Sunday night, if I could have most of the major assignments done, by Thursday or Friday, and then I could like have a weekend. Wouldn't that be so awesome? I had to skip my sword fighting class on the weekend, although I did. Uh, that wasn't only because I wasn't studying. I went out to a dinner for my mom's birthday with family, and then the next night I went to dinner at my parents. So some of that was out, but other than that, I was pretty much working on the masters the whole time. Um, After the walking around a little bit for the first day or two, when I was sort of preoccupied with setting up my space and maybe getting my last breath of of an abundance of free time, which I won't have now for the next year and a half, 2 years, however long it takes me to do this. But I'm excited about it. I'm really enjoying it, and that makes all the difference if you're really interested. Like even you know last night, like I said, I just got the last things in, like just down to the wire, because I realized at the last minute, after finishing one assignment and going back into the discussion boards, that I think the two videos that I did might not have been the videos I was supposed to do. So I kind of, had to rush to get those done. One of them I'd done it, but I realized that I'd forgot to click the finish and submit buttons. So little things like that, that you gotta double check on, which are, if you leave it too much to the last minute, could become a bit of a meltdown, right? But I found even when I was confused and I wasn't sure if I was going to get things done, because I really, really am enjoying the material, those moments of confusion are a lot less stressful than if I was studying something that really wasn't that interesting, or maybe interesting, but that I wasn't driven to study. So whatever it is you're interested, I think it's a good idea to follow that, listen to that and follow that path. Not to say that you should never study something that you're not interested in. It still might be useful, but I think if you're doing something like really in depth, like a master's, or I can imagine if you're doing a PhD, you want to make sure you're interested in it. So yeah, that was my week. Now, the professors are all very supportive and great, that I've talked to. I actually only have one professor for this first semester, because I have the same professor teaching the two courses that I'm doing. But I've interacted with some of the other ones, because we've had some orientation, sessions where different professors were there, and there was a professor that was going to teach my professional orientation class, but it got moved, taken over by the professor I'm doing now. So I had reached out to him about probably a month before starting, about like questions, textbooks, and stuff about this other guy. And he was very helpful. The people at in terms of the people that were helping me to go through the admissions process, and then all the academic advisors and stuff, have all been extremely helpful, which has been great. So if anybody's looking to do a master's in counseling and they want it online, so far I can give my thumbs up to University of West Alabama. It's been great. I wasn't able to find an online program in Canada, so I was. But luckily, it's only a two hour difference time zone. So now I'm kind of glad. I'm getting to interact with a different group of people that I wouldn't have been interacting with otherwise. If so, that's great. Um, yeah, I know there was something I was alluding to and trying to get around to. Oh yeah, so these some of these video assignments where I had to watch a video. There's some questions, um, and then when we upload something to these websites, part of our assignment is to comment on at least two other people's work. Now, if I post at 2 hours to the deadline, that doesn't give a lot of time for people um, to give me feedback on what I have posted, to ask questions or make comments about what I did. But I think I'm sort of in the same boat as a lot of people because this is all our first week, and we're all feeling out just on what our pace has to be, and how long it's going to take. And the professor actually, Dr. Willis, had said to us that to sort of allow ourselves that first 2 weeks of sort of being unsure and uncomfortable, and that's okay. And I think that's great, great advice when you're starting something new is don't sweat it too much in the beginning. If you're learning new systems, whatever it would be. I know that every different teaching position I ever had, the first month is kind of chaotic, because you have a new maybe computer system that you have to use for doing attendance and all that kind of stuff. You have new just new things, right? And it's often a lot to take in a short period of time. um, but if you just know that that's normal for the beginning of something, then over time some of those things that took a lot of time will become second nature, and you'll just be able to blow through it a little faster in terms of knowing what part of the website to go to find a particular thing, because it seems like each module, which in this course anyways, they seem to be a week in length. Each module sort of follows a very similar you know format in terms of you go to similar. The website is laid out similar to Blackboard is what we use. I'm really liking that. One of the courses uses an online interactive thing called MindTap, which is great. I like that. And there's another one for a course that I haven't bought yet, but it's called Trevor, and I'm not sure what that's going to be, but maybe that'll be interesting too. All of the I'd say all of the platforms that I'm using, I find are fairly intuitive and fairly user friendly. Although there's a lot of information in there, so learning how to navigate it may take some time. Just like if I move to like an insanely large city, learning to navigate the different places is going to take time, right? And I think if you go into a big endeavor with this, with that mindset that you don't have to be an expert on day one. I think that's kind of a takeaway for me. And I think if I hadn't done large sort of in involved study before, then maybe I would be more frantic. So if you're studying something like maybe it's even your undergraduate degree, and there's so much, know that you can adapt, and that then it's going to be chaotic at first, and that's okay. Anyways, I should get back to work. I want to do a little bit more reading before I go to bed. I did come home today, and I took a nap. Then I woke up and ate dinner. Then I took another nap because, like I said, last night I was up till 2:30 a.m. and the night before that I was up basically till class about 6:30 a.m. So those are some um, what can I say, um, things that I want to move away from, right? So my goal is to be, you know, try to get my as much work as I can do, top heavy in terms of the week. Now I'll have to go for balance in that, because there's some things that I read very slowly and in depth, and I know a lot of people say that when you're doing, um, university, that you have to develop skim reading. Um, but there's a lot of stuff that I read quite slowly, with a highlighter and sticky notes. Um, I something I think I'm going to have to be concerned with is that if I start earlier, that I still, you know, find the balance. So I'm thinking perhaps, um, if I do sort of, somewhat of a skim read. Um, for example, there were some PowerPoints that we were given that summarized chapters. Um, but I didn't get into those PowerPoints until 3 or 4 days in, and they had a lot of the summary done. So there's some stuff that I was sort of doing maybe twice. So I'm thinking what my strategy this time is to find the PowerPoints first and highlight all that stuff in the chapter that I'm doing, as kind of a quick skim, and then I'll sort of know what some of the main, important things that the instructor, whoever made these PowerPoints, think are highlighted, and if I get through that for all the chapters and everything I need, then I have more time to go back and maybe do a second, more involved reading. So that might be a strategy that I'll try out this week and see how it works. I think that's another thing, right? Like, different strategies are, can be experiments, trial and order, right? Try something, see if it works. Um, if it doesn't completely work, maybe elements of it does. Take that, and the parts that don't, maybe you let that go and try something different. Getting tips and feedback from the instructor. I was fairly, in contact with Dr. Willis through email and through the discussion boards and the other students. Um, So, anyways, the first week, was, uh, a marathon, but it was a very, for the most part, enjoyable marathon. I want the second week to be even more enjoyable, just by adding a little more, balance. Because the way I did it was sort of like I started out as a marathon, and then I realized, wow, I still have many miles to go, and then the end was a sprint. So maybe I want to, like a marathon runner. Um, I think as I keep doing this, I'll be focusing on my pacing. What's the ideal pace? And I mean, might be tricky, right? Because each, module might be a little different, and then different courses might have different. But I think it's going to be good. Anyways, like and subscribe if this helps you. If you're out there, doing, a master's or some other kind of study, if you can get some tips out of this, that's great. Um, if there's anything you want to put in the comments, put it in. Of course, this video is, again, a little long. I know, looking at my analytics, that the average view is about like 3 or 4 minutes, but that's all right. I'm enjoying this, just doing it myself, even if it doesn't catch on. Often, journal writing or doing some way of, you know, revisiting and reflecting, I think, is a good, strategy for memory. So, if this, kind of blog experiment catches on and I get a lot of views, then great. If not, I still think it's useful and it's out there. And I've had a few people, look at it and comment, and I've had maybe 2 or 3 new subscribers since I started, which is, pretty awesome. I'll just tell you a story about, long time ago. Okay, I'm 49 now. I'll be 50 in a few months. Uh, when I was, I don't know, maybe 19, 20, I went to see a show with a bunch of bands. It was here in PEI at the UPEI Barn, which this was a place on the university campus. It's since been torn down and a new building has made, but it was a barn, and in that barn it had the I think it had maybe the student union, and I know it had the campus radio station, and then it had a big open area with some, I think, with a bar, and sometimes bands and stuff played there. And so there was quite a lot of shows there that were done with where several bands would come, and they'd set up a stage. In one case, they had a stage at either end, so that when one band was playing, they're getting ready on the other end for the other band, so that there wasn't a big waiting time between. But anyways, these three bands come over from Moncton. Three, four, I don't remember. What I distinctly remember though is that one of those bands was Bad Luck Number 13, a punk band from Moncton. Another one was the Monoxides, and I think because I just happened to see a post about this, the Monoxides put on Facebook showing like one of their old CDs, and I it just coincidentally, this is why this is in my head. And I mentioned, I think I saw you guys at a show with Bad Luck. But anyways, there was this one show, and it was during a snowstorm, and there were only about 8 of us that showed up to watch the show because of the snowstorm. But the bands were there. They didn't turn back, or maybe they got there before it started storming. I don't quite remember. But I was always so impressed with this band, Bad Luck Number 13, because even though there were only 8 of us, they put so much energy into it. Like, they were entertaining us the same as if there would have been 100 people or 100,000. And that always stuck with me, that, no matter how many people are watching, put your heart into it. And, if you connect or touch one of those people, that might make a lasting impression. I still remember that, and I was still very, very impressed with their sort of attitude and their work ethic. Because I play in bands myself, right? And I've seen times where there were either I was in a band or seen another band, and there was not many people show up, and then they had this terrible attitude of just like, wow, nobody showed up, so I'm not gonna. So this is not worth my time. It's always worth your time. If you connect with, one person, you might connect with that person and touch them in a way that affects them for your entire life, and that seems like, when I think of going into counseling, or, even when I was teaching, you never know, the impression you might be making. They might not tell you. I remember once when I was about early 20s, as I said, I've dealt with depression a little bit, and I remember I was sitting on a bench, and I was sort of feeling really depressed. I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was maybe having some suicidal ideation. This is where you're not necessarily planning suicide, but it's like the thoughts are in your head. And this complete stranger sat down on the bench next to me and just said, man, how you doing? You don't look so good. And, those things, right, to one person, can be so important in a person's life, right? And, I only hope that, in my life, if I manage to, affect one person like that in a way that really helps them, whether it's through, counseling, being a friend, if there's a song that I write or I'm involved in and it touches people, it's an amazing thing to be able to, um, for people to be able to touch each other and connect with each other. So I'm going to leave it at that because I do want to keep up these videos, but again, balance. I need to get to work. All right, like, subscribe, leave comments if you so choose.